you have talked about how the United Nations, they don't consider local tensions,
Right.
but are they actually the best actors if they would want to resolve these local tensions?
No, of course not. The best actors, if we want to resolve local tensions, the best actors are local Congolese actors. There are grassroots society organizations, grassroots non-governmental organizations, local leaders, local authorities. These are the best people to resolve local tensions because these are people who actually know what these tensions are, and they are people who have the legitimacy within the local communities to resolve the tensions. And they also are people who have the means to think about solutions to this conflict and to think about the most appropriate solutions to this conflict. So the most appropriate actors are the local actors on the ground, the communities, the citizen, the ordinary citizen, and the local leaders. Now, when you talk about these people who have tried to resolve conflict on the ground, all these Congolese actors, and there are many of them, what they tell you all the time is that they lack financial resources, they lack logistic resources, and sometimes they lack technical resources to resolve all the local conflicts and to do everything that is needed at the local level. So that's where international actors like the United Nations or non-governmental organizations have a role to play. It's to support these local actors.
Okay, and so you suggest that there would be a possibility between more interaction between the United Nations and local actors.
Right, exactly. Again, I'm not talking too much about the United Nations peacekeeping missions because peacekeepers, soldiers are definitely not the best actors to resolve local tensions, but I'm thinking about agencies like UN Habitat, for example. They arrived in Congo a couple of years ago, so they have started only recently to start working on local conflicts, but they still have very few people. They have few cars, they have very few resources. So that's the kind of agencies, or UNDP, the UN Development Program. They also have just a few people who work on trying to think about how to support local actors and how to resolve local tensions. And this would be, the civilian agencies would be the most appropriate one to support Congolese local actors. But also international non-governmental organizations would also be very good channel to help local actors, and same for the donors like USAID, the European Union, the Japanese cooperation agencies. All of them can really support local actors and make a huge difference in terms of resolution of local conflict.
So yeah, you mentioned national and international NGOs. What is the role of these NGOs in building peace in the Democratic Republic of Congo?
Do you mean what they're doing now, or ideally what I think they should be doing?
Both.
Both? Okay. What they're doing now is that, well, for national Congolese organizations, they work all across the board. So you have local, very small local civil society oriented organizations who try to do things at the grassroots level, and you have big non-governmental organizations based in the capital and who try to do national and international reconciliation. So really all over the spectrum. When you talk about international non-governmental organizations, most of them work, at least when you think about the Eastern Congo, where you still have most of the violence, most of them work in humanitarian issues. So they do emergency relief. They don't really work on peace and peace building. Then when you look at the few non-governmental organizations who work on peace building in Congo, most of them are based in Kinshasa, in the capital city, or elsewhere in the world, and they focus again on national and international tensions, national and international reconciliation. And you have very few international non-governmental organizations who actually try to support local conflict resolution on the ground in Congo. And these few non-governmental organizations are, for example, Search for Common Ground, International Alert, Life and Peace Institute, La Benevolencia. But they are really just a few, and they are not enough to provide all the support to Congolese actors that is needed.
Considering that the war in the DRC has started by a foreign invasion in 1996, which started the First Congo War. And that the crisis in the DRC involves many interests of foreign governments and transnational corporations. How can you solve the conflict by looking at local tensions in this context?
Well, I think there are two parts to my answers to the question. The first part is that I'm not saying that we should only focus on local tensions. What I'm saying is that we should focus on local tensions in addition to focusing on national and international reconciliations. So again, I'm not saying that by resolving local tensions we will resolve everything in the Congo. What I'm saying is that if we don't resolve local tensions, then whatever we do at the national and international level is never going to be sustainable. Because every time we achieve something at this higher level, and if we don't do anything at the local grassroots level, then local tensions will fester, they will escalate, and they will jeopardize everything that we have achieved at the broader level. And that's something that has happened many times in 2004, in 2007, in 2008. Again, recently, every time we let tensions fester, they just jeopardize everything that we had achieved in the past 10, 15 years. So again, not saying that local conflict resolutions is the be-all and end-all. I'm saying we absolutely need to do that if we want to resolve the local, national and international sources of violence. Because there is an interaction between local sources of violence, national sources of violence and international sources of violence. Now, what's interesting is that your questions say that the war started in 1996 with the foreign invasion, and that's the standard narrative of the war in Congo. But you know that it's not accurate. You know that violence actually started in the early 90s. There were tensions, there were a lot of conflict, a lot of violence in the early 90s, and this conflict and this tension caused actually really large-scale massacres in the Kivus, in the eastern Congo.
And these tensions were local.
And yes, thank you. These tensions were local. There were tensions over land, there were tensions around traditional power, local traditional power and local administrative power, the kind of tension that we talked about just before. And these tensions escalated, and they caused large-scale massacres in the Kivu in 1993. So a year before the Rwandan genocide, 3 years before the Rwandan and the foreign invasion of the Congo. So you already had the conditions of a civil war in the eastern Congo before the foreign invasion. And then when you had the national and the international problems, local actors tried to recruit national and international actors to advance their local agendas. And the national and international actors did the same. They tried to ally and to manipulate local actors in order to advance their national and international agendas. So since then, the different dimensions of the conflicts and all these different conflicts and agendas have become interlinked because they're all using one another and working with one another, each to advance their own agenda, national agenda, international agenda, or local agenda. And so local violence fuels national and international violence, just like international and national violence fuels local violence. And again, if you want to resolve all of these tensions and all of these conflict, it's not by only resolving national and international tensions that you're going to do anything sustainable. Given there is such an interaction, you also need to resolve the local tensions that have caused violence since before the foreign invasion of the Congo.
Illegal exploitation of natural resources is one of the big causes of the conflict in the DRC. So where do you place illegal exploitation of natural resources in the whole local, national and regional equation?
Everywhere. I place it everywhere. You have illegal exploitation of natural resources by local actors for local reasons, at the national level for national reasons, and at the international level for international reasons. So I really place it everywhere. But I think what's really important is that there has been really a focus on the illegal exploitation of natural resources in recent years, I would say in the past 5 years, and especially with the provision to the Dodd-Frank Act and all the legislation by the U.S. Congress and by other foreign government to try to stop the illegal exploitation of resources by non-governmental organizations as well. And what I find a bit worrying is that it's as if the illegal exploitation of natural resources was the most important cause of violence, whether at the international or local level, and therefore that by resolving the illegal exploitation of natural resources, we would resolve the conflict in Congo. And to me, that's a simplification that's extremely, extremely dangerous, because the illegal exploitation of resources is one of the causes of violence, but it's only one among many other causes of violence. Against the causes of violence at the international and national levels, the other causes of violence are well known, but again, at the local level, you have violence over land, agricultural land, you have violence around local traditional and administrative power, you have violence against social status, and so by focusing only on natural resources, I'm really afraid that again, there will be an opportunity cost, that we will focus on resolving the illegal exploitation of natural resources, and that will assuage one of the many sources of tensions, but only one of them.
And why this focus on, because you say that there are many actors to consider, why this focus on natural resources?
Well, that's something I've started working on for my new book, for this new project, and I still don't have the perfect answer. I just have elements of an answer. So I think there are a couple of reasons. The first one is that the conflict in Congo is so complicated, and people have so little time to try to, when I say people, I say interveners on the ground and interveners in headquarters. They have so many things to do and so little time to try to analyze the conflict that it's very useful for them when they can find a simple analysis. And natural resources, the argument about the illegal exploitation of natural resources is very attractive because it fits with the broader intellectual discourse on the role of natural resources in fueling civil war. So there have been a lot of work by the World Bank, for example, on natural resources. You have had the Kimberley process to try to assuage this problem. So again, it's something that people are familiar with, and there are ideas of how to go about resolving this issue. While if you talk about, let's say, about land, about conflict over land over an entire immense territory like the Congo, it's very difficult to think about where you start. So it's much easier to think about natural resources as if you're an intervener, you want to do something. It's much easier to think about natural resources and controlling the illegal exploitation of natural resources than to think about the tens of thousands of other causes of violence that you would need to resolve at the same time to promote a sustainable solution to the Congolese conflict.
Well, thank you so much, Séverine, for taking the time to talk to us. We really appreciate it.
Well, thank you so much for the invitation. I really appreciate it as well.
You're
Thank
welcome.
you.
Thank you.